Why don't spiritual masters talk to us about the true history of the cosmos? Or at least the true history of humanity as is? Well, it is not quite commonplace, but it is not necessarily commonly known that we bear in our DNA the entire history of the cosmos. Because every bit of matter, at a certain level of, subtlety, let's say, they bear the entire memory that they have gone through. So, indirectly, you can actually access the whole cosmos history. But the point is, one needs a certain stability because in order to do that, well, one needs to be very stable emotionally and mentally. Because when you view that history, you'll view it the way it has been, with all the pains, with all the emotional output that it has been. Most people can't handle their own troubles in life, their own challenges in life. So the question is, why would you want to experience World War II or any other traumatic experience of us, of our history, even your life? Because the pain that was unleashed in those times may be so strong it can simply break your body. Yes, or your mind or your emotional body or something like that may snap. Now, when it comes to spiritual masters, they are not called spiritual masters for nothing. See, their point is to simply experience all the possible dimensions of life that they're interested in. Maybe everything, or, well, just some bits, because, well, a master of the spirit is someone who has mastered a certain dimension or more dimensions of experience, or certain elements of the spiritual realms, not just everything. There are probably some who have thought and probably achieved everything, like, for example, I don't know, the so called Adiyogi in Hinduism, who is said to have explored all the possible dimensions of life and so many years ago has spoken about the 114 chakras representing the human body. Such people, and well, you don't need to actually do that much spiritual, let's say, undergoing in order to reach a level that may allow you to see some of the humanity's history. But should you have access to it and have all the stability needed, then the question is, what will you do with it? Because researching the history is done in several ways, and let's say you can actually view it. It will take its time. It's not gonna be like expanding time. In 1 second, you'll see the whole history. You might even need to take years, right, to experience that, because you're not gonna initially be able to experience probably more than half a second or half a minute and things like that, right, depending on certain practitioners. But the point is, as you go on and go on and go on, maybe you will spend years, okay? You have learned all you need about humanity's history. Then comes the question, what will you do with it, right? Because now you're gonna fight against forces who don't want that. The moment you expose yourself to spiritual dimensions, obviously other people will also notice, right? Spiritualists, spiritual practitioners, right? Maybe some people who don't want humans to wake up that much, and maybe they will hunt you in certain ways. Maybe they will not attack you or kill you from range, right? Maybe they will just cast hexes on you to try to pull you down. Let's say you bypass them all and you still preserve your capability. How will you prove humanity, right? What you have created. Because don't forget, for at least 200 years, humanity has been living in a conveyor belt lifestyle, and especially schooling system has been like that. It always promotes the people who are close-minded, who only take what the school and so-called science gives them, and everything else is a constipational theory. But when you look at the trends, constipational theories, kind of each and every one has become more or less a reality. Well, not all of them, obviously, but some of them were, well, indeed proven by so-called science. Science, when you look at it, also looks like the Bible or the religious beliefs of the Middle Ages. If you believe anything else, you're some kind of pariah, right? You have to be marginalized. And then there was the pandemic experiments, which clearly showed how much people are capable of giving up their freedom, right, in order to preserve their comfort. And well, if you give up your freedom for security, you kind of deserve neither. So when it comes to societies like this in which we live, do you think having such a power to have access and know all the history of the world, uh, well, that will make you a good target, for bribing? Some people might present themselves at your door because obviously there are other psychers in the world, and well, they'll probably want to bribe you. Or maybe you're gonna get killed for that power. Don't forget, with great power comes great responsibility. If you're gonna get bribed, you're gonna probably enter some dark cults or things like that where you are not gonna be able to share that which you have taken. So you have wasted so many times of your life to do what? To please your ego, that you finally now know something, but you're not gonna be able to share it with everyone else. You see, this is just a silly, stupid aspect of the mind that you do so much effort to gain something just so that you get in the grave with it and not ever be willing or capable to simply share it with the world. Because what's your legacy? That's something that each and everyone has to ask themselves. The more narcissistic you are, the less capable you are to ask yourself that. Because in the end, your life will gonna end sooner or later. Whether you live 1000 years or 5 years, or whether you're gonna live 80 years, when you look back in time, well, it all looks like a split second, right? So if you have access to all the history of the world, what you gonna do with it? You're gonna write a book? Well, it's gonna be forbidden, or it's gonna be regarded as mockery, as fantasy, right? Because don't forget, the truth will always be mocked at first, and then it's gonna be fully repressed, brutally repressed, and then it's gonna be accepted in a cutesy or funny way. They're gonna still make fun of it because that's how narcissists function, right? They won't ever accept defeat. They will make it feel as if all that which has been suppressed, has finally been revealed through some scientific facts as true, right? They're gonna discard the whole effort of the people that have been killed and regard it as, constipational theorists. And, a new research made obviously and supported by the so-called narcissist has presented specifically that instead. Because as a narcissist, you always have to discard the efforts of the others and put the light always on you, right? So in such a sick society, what you gonna do with all the knowledge of the history? You're gonna tell it to some of your friends? Well, definitely they're not gonna have the time to listen to you, and even if they did, what will they do with it anyways, right? You're gonna post it in videos, on vlogs. Some people will listen to those. But why don't spiritual masters say that? Because they have big influence. See, a spiritual master, a real spiritual master, is not interested in being your master, right? We're calling them badly masters because they're not masters over you. They are masters over elements. So they're not seeking to be slavers. They're not seeking slaves. They're seeking followers who are willing to follow their teachings and their practices so that they themselves become bolstered spiritually as well, right? So a spiritual master who has access to so much knowledge obviously doesn't want to make use of that knowledge against you. Because when someone knows something that you want to know, obviously they have a certain control over you, right? Because you're willing to know that may actually make you willing to do certain things in order to get your hands on that information, right? So a spiritual master is interested in sharing certain things, but they are interested in making you stable enough so that you experience that yourself, because that is spirituality. Fake spirituality is all about some bozos telling you this, telling you that, speaking to you about astral projection and the such. A true master will teach you the important aspects of spirituality, because astral projection is not a spiritual advancement. It is something that almost anyone can do, yes, but it is not a spiritual advancement. It is just more or less a mental aspect. It's just one of the traps of the mind, because it's gonna sound tempting. You're gonna do it, and it's gonna feel so tempting, you're probably gonna waste your time doing that, but it's not gonna advance you spiritually in any way, shape, or form. Then let's say you're capable of spying on your elders, on your friends or others. How are you gonna prove what you're gonna say? Because if you're capable of doing things like that, obviously your aura is going to be much different than the mundane bots surrounding you. They will feel that, so obviously they will run away from it. They will coalesce against you. Everything that you say is going to be bad, right? They're going to make fun of you. You're that spirit guy, right? That spirit dope, that weirdo, right? They're going to simply dismiss most of what you're going to have to say. So if you have access to so much power, well, you have to reach a certain level of influence in which you create a certain movement, right? Like other few spiritual masters, in which you help people realize their potential and become stable enough so that they experience the amount of awareness that you have and the amount of knowledge that you have accessed from the astral realms, right? This is what you would want to do with that much power. Because straightforward telling things when the time is not right will lead to you being killed, cancelled, or whatever else. All the people in history who have told things about the system, secrets, and became whistleblowers, they did it out of an ego, first and foremost, not because they actually wanted to wake up people. That is an impulse. You don't have to follow that impulse because you want to work in the shadows, right? You have to find the right moment in which you send that information out, especially in a sick society obsessed with control, with banning, with oppressing the truth, right? So hopefully this video raised a bit of awareness. You are appreciated, take care, enjoy life. This being said, Ferenc Board signing out.